Welcome to the Deep Specialization Podcast, the show where we blend focus, strategy, and client intimacy in order to scale and simplify our businesses and our lives. I'm your host, Corey Quinn. Let's jump into the show. Today, I'm joined by the VP of Sales and Marketing of the Cannabis Creative Group, Dan Serard. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm super excited for our conversation. Would you mind just introducing yourself, telling the audience a little bit about who you are and the work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Dan Serard. I head business development and marketing at Cannabis Creative Group. So I'm based up here in Boston, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. I have been working with Cannabis Creative Group since early 2018, where I have really started the vertical here. So I know that, we're jumping into niche audiences and niche verticals and really getting into specifics and a little unique perspective where when I got hired, I actually found the job on Indeed, and the agency was existing before. So we have been an agency since 2008, Champ Internet, as a generalized agency. And the CEO and co-founders of that agency hired me to really develop a vertical into an emerging industry, the cannabis industry.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to hear all about this. So just to feed this back to you, Champion is the parent company that you work for. Is that right?
Right. Champ Internet.
Champ Internet, excuse me. And yeah, Champ was started in 2008. And they're still around, obviously, today. And they are, as you said, more of a generalist agency. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. And so when you say generalist, like who do they typically serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So Champ's background is really in a few different areas that we have experience in. E-commerce, which is very general.
Sure.
We do a lot in travel and tourism, food and beverage. Yep. We do a lot in manufacturing and professional services, and then any business that's looking for marketing services.
Yep, so there it is.
Exactly. So as a overview of Champ, what services we work on and have worked on since 2008, our full service agency. So branding, website design, social media, search engine optimization, paid advertising, and social media. Okay.
So full suite there. And so what was happening at Champ Internet in 2018 that caused the founders to say, hey, we want to take a vertical market approach?
Yeah, definitely. There was a few things that happened with the founders and life in general. First and foremost, we as Champ Internet, before my time, had a couple clients in the cannabis industry. We worked with a dispensary up in Maine and a cannabis extraction lab in Massachusetts. And we didn't know how to position these clients necessarily on our website, where we did some amazing work with them, but we also work with nonprofit attorneys and school districts and all these other businesses who we didn't know if at that time in 2017, 2018, if cannabis was perceived as okay to work with. So that was one side of the story. The other side of the story is Seth Warby, who's the CEO and founder of Champ Internet, Cannabis Creative Group, has a fond interest in cannabis, and other employees at the agency did as well. So it was something that they felt very passionate about, which, nonprofit attorney work is great and working with the marina is lovely to go on boat rides, but something that, is near and dear to their history and passion is definitely something that they're interested in. And then the third piece of the puzzle there that worked out was recreational cannabis was about to be legalized in the state of Massachusetts. So it was legalized in a few other states like Colorado and California and Oregon and Washington, but really no states on the East Coast. So Seth and Josephine, the other co-founder, saw this as an opportunity to really be a first mover in the cannabis industry that was newly emerging in Massachusetts as the first state on the East Coast to legalize recreationally. And that's really where they developed Cannabis Creative Group as the brand.
Okay. So that's super helpful. Still, there's a lot there. I want to dive in. I love the fact that you mentioned that one of the three things that caused them ultimately to lean into this vertical was the fact that they had a passion for it. And I think in some respects, what I see a lot of agency owners who are kind of dabbling in different verticals, they're making more of a logical decision. Well, maybe there's a lot of ad spend here, maybe there's a large TAM, but the ingredient that typically is missing is that level of care, empathy, customer intimacy, like a real genuine emotional connection with that industry, if you will. In this case, this was the cannabis industry, and so just for reference today, just give listeners a sense of where the business is all the way forward to today. We're going to go back to 2018, but just today, tell us a little bit about the Cannabis Creative Group business.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we have grown the business from those 2 clients in 2018 to we've worked with over 400 cannabis businesses. We've operated it in over 30 states in Europe, Mexico, and Canada. So Cannabis Creative Group has absolutely took off like wildfire and it's a majority of our business. I would say, I'd have to look at the numbers, but probably 80 to 85% of the agency's business as a whole now over the last 5 or 6 years.
Do you mean the Champ's overall business or just Cannabis Creative business?
The overall business between Champ and Cannabis Creative Group. So it's 2 brands under one roof with the same team working on multiple projects. Got it.
Okay. So of the combined brands, it represents a very significant amount of the revenue.
Exactly. Yep.
Got it. All right. So that's helpful context. Let's go back to 2018 just for a minute here.
Sure.
And so you had the 2 clients. There was Massachusetts was coming on board as it relates to recreational legalization. You had the passion. Why not just, and you mentioned this a little bit, but just, I'm curious if there's any other drivers behind, well, why not just, focus the efforts under Champion and under that brand? Why launch a separate brand?
Yeah, really the couple movers here were that our team was able to develop some nuances knowing the cannabis industry and learning from our clients that really gave us a leg up in terms of the work that we could do, the value that we could provide to our clients. So and as background for listeners, in the cannabis industry, it's federally illegal still. So there are many restrictions in terms of what you can and can't do online, in terms of advertising, in terms of what you can say, what you can't say. So for our team, we had to learn a lot of this. Can you run Google ads? Can you run social media ads? If so, how? And find these loopholes. So what we really did was why we wanted to spin off is because the cannabis operators know that it's very hard to do. So when looking at an agency that works with many different companies, you need to learn the cannabis industry. It's a very difficult industry to learn, and it takes time. It takes trial by error. So in order for us to position ourselves as a leader in the East Coast, knowing that we have multiple clients under our belt, that's really why we developed this alongside, working with some nonprofit attorneys and people we don't think would necessarily or see cannabis as taboo. We wanted to separate those 2 entities. So that was really the 2 core factors there.
And then they decided to bring you on as a dedicated employee to help build this brand. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So the team at Champ, Seth and his business partner, Josephine, the co-founder, they raised some capital to hire me. And what my goal was to see if this was going to work. And really, either in 6 months, we're going to be doing well and, this is successful and we figured out a vertical, or in 6 months, I might have not have a job anymore. So, I come from a background in health and wellness and sales management. So I've also launched a couple of different product lines, gone to market with some nootropics and vitamins and in the food and beverage space. So I've done a little bit of go-to-market where I can really look at an industry and figure out how to tap into the right decision makers, learn the industry, and really determine if there's a good fit or not. So that was really my goal for the first 6 months, is to just throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. And if it does, that's great. And it did, lucky for me.
Yeah, right. And so obviously this was an expanding industry at the same time. Were there a lot of other agencies at that time really focusing in the way that you guys were?
Yeah, that's a great question. From my research, there was really two or three agencies in the US that had some experience. Those were based in Washington and I think California. So some of the early moving states. There were none on the East Coast, and that's where we really saw that there was an opportunity, knowing that, and once again, for listeners that may not know the cannabis industry, it's state regulated. So every state is very different in terms of how cannabis is sold, what the operations look like, and honestly, the industry as a whole is very siloed. So knowing that there were no movers yet in Massachusetts, it allowed us an opportunity to be the first in the market, dedicated towards all the dispensaries and CBD stores and brands that were coming online.
So as you were stepping into this new role, it sounds like you had a great background for this. Had you worked in cannabis prior to taking this role?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's see here. Not professionally or legally, let's say.
Okay, yeah.
So cannabis industry, it's adult use industry. I'm sure, many people know that it's very different and newly regulated. I used to live in California. And in California in 2014, 2015, I spent some time up in Humboldt County, which is really the mecca for cannabis in the United States. So I had a friend who had a farm up there. I was able to really see that side of the market, as it was legal there for medicinal use and soon to be recreational use. I really see the operations there from a standpoint working within a farm. So that was a really fun experience for me. A crazy experience, but it allowed me some of that background to see how some of these operators have built, especially in the home of cannabis, I would call it, in the United States.
Yeah. And were you ever tempted to join that part of the industry as far as, becoming involved in the production?
Yes, that is one thing that is really cool. It's crazy to see that side of the industry progress. And I talk to people every day who ask me, why do I work with an ancillary business outside of the production side of things? And, my response to them is, why would I work with one brand when I can work with hundreds, right? And see all these cool and innovative products and really help multiple brands go to market instead of just be, laser focused on one. It's a really unique opportunity that I get to be involved in.
Really cool. And so in those early days, you mentioned you threw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall. You did a lot of things. What were the things that didn't work out, and what were the things that did work out in those early days?
Yeah, absolutely. And, Corey, I've listened to your podcast a lot, and I think people have mixed feelings on trade shows and if they work or not. What I can tell you is we had tremendous success with trade shows in the beginning, and we invested heavily into being in front of audiences, both speaking and exhibiting. And these are cannabis specific trade shows. So it's operators, it's ancillary businesses, it's more than just, marketing people who get together and talk about SEO. Knowing that we were really the only mover in emerging markets, we were the only marketing agency at trade shows for years. It really gave us a leg up on the competition. It really allowed us to establish ourselves as a thought leader in speaking engagements. And the cannabis industry, although it's growing quickly, I guess no pun intended, it's still small. So we knew all the major players. We knew the Coca-Colas and the Pepsis of cannabis. We knew all, the HubSpots of cannabis and all the CRM platforms. So it was a really interesting time because we saw this legal market starting and we were on the ground floor and with them, every month. So that was really something that worked. I also am not going to lie. I prospected and cold called and cold emailed more than a regular, BDR would, because I knew that really I had a time frame here. Yeah. So it was really interesting because how do you get contact data from a company who hasn't even launched yet, right? We work with a lot of dispensaries who just received their license, but they don't have a Google My Business. I can't look up their website. So we really did some research into how to find these contacts and found some state databases that when someone applies for a license, they fill out a PDF form. That PDF form has their name and email and phone number. And it was a lot of manual scraping because once again, in the cannabis industry, there's no scraping tools. There were no Zoom infos at the time. So I spent hours and hours and hours looking through hundreds of PDFs to, try to find that scribble of the signature and see what their name was and input that into our CRM to reach out. So that was a lot of work, but it paid off very well. So I would say, in terms of trade shows and events and prospecting was really how we developed our name in the cannabis industry. There was no, at that time, there was some search volume for cannabis marketing agencies, but there was not much, which luckily we invested into. We really invested into a great website, high performing website, invested into our SEO team, where now if you look at, cannabis marketing agencies, we're number one. So that was the third thing I would say that we really focused on, knowing that our background in Champ is search and Seth's background is search. So he knew that, if we invest the time now, we're going to own that space in the future.
Awesome. So when it comes to the trade shows, it wasn't just having a booth. Did you spoke from the stage and those type of things?
Yeah, exactly. So myself, Josephine, Seth, we did a lot of speaking engagements. Everyone that we could, we did. I mean, I was traveling in all random parts of the country to trade shows where there's 10 exhibitors at a hotel basement, and spent a lot of time on the road the first few years, really growing as a thought leader in the space. And that took some time. But I would say that's really how we get a lot of our business now is being a thought leader. People know who we are, and referrals.
What channels besides trade shows and conferences do you focus on for your thought leadership?
Yeah, definitely. We do a lot of PR now. So in the cannabis industry, there's award platforms that we've been recognized in, and that has been really successful with us, where we can showcase the great work that we've had over the years. I also contribute to Rolling Stone Culture Council, which is part of the magazine there, and cannabis specifically, I'm able to write about and offer content pieces to, which has been tremendous. And then additionally, I'm part of multiple associations. So one of the associations that I work with and I've been on for 3 years is the NCIA, the National Cannabis Industry Association. I sit on their marketing and advertising committee, and that's been great to really help with the industry as a whole from that standpoint, and also brainstorm with other marketing leaders in the space where they're seeing success, where they're seeing failures, where we can learn from each other.
Yeah. Well, I think what you guys have done really well is obviously took advantage. You were aggressive to the extent that you took all the opportunities you could to get in front of your audience, to be a thought leader. I also love the fact that you are involved with the associations. That is an area where a lot of agencies don't immediately recognize the opportunity. But the fact that you are a co-chair of the education and content for the actual industry association, to your point, you're not only, you have authority and credibility based on that, but you're also helping to guide the industry itself, which is fantastic. And it's a real hat tip to your agency.
Yeah, that's been great. And it's been amazing to be part of that. And really, in that role, we've been able to develop some amazing content for a bunch of licensees, whether it's just marketing tips from a 101 standpoint, how to build your brand appropriately. We did an ebook, how to stand out from the crowd. So, now this is different at this time in age in 2024, where now we see some of these states, it's a saturated market. So how to stand out from a saturated market versus, 3 years ago, it was, you're in the only game in town. So that's been interesting as well. And there's some other, associations like the Cannabis Marketing Association, and there's some New York and Massachusetts local associations that we're part of too. But it's been any value that we can provide to operators, even if it's not, hey, work with us for your paid search campaigns, always willing to have a conversation, and it really progresses the industry as a whole.
Nice. Now that the industry is more mature than it was in the early days, how are you differentiating and positioning the agency relative to your competitors?
Yeah, there's a few things that we're doing. And the first definitely goes to our experience. I mean, 7 years of experience in the cannabis industry is a long, long time. So knowing that the team has done this for over 400 projects is really a key differentiator with us. We've also been able to look at the industry as a whole across different states. Now that we've seen states progress and siloed markets progress, right? Where Massachusetts as an industry started in 2018, they've progressed. Now they're saturated in 2024. As other states come online, we're seeing the same thing happening, right? So we know right from the start, here's what's going to happen. Here's how we can help you. And here's how we can differentiate yourself through marketing. So, one of the interesting things that I've been doing is really defining our service offerings based on these different stages at where businesses are at, right?
Amazing. That's so good. That's so great. And the benefit, you're taking advantage of the specialization that you have. Like a generalist would have no clue on how to provide this kind of value, but for the business and the vertical, the industry you're serving, there's through the roof value. These people need your guidance.
Yeah. And it's in terms of marketing, it's all about timing and sales is all about timing. So to position yourself as a vertical leader, you need to understand where they're at in their business and help them with what's going on right now.
Agency owners, in 2024, do you want to finally escape founder-led sales? My book, Anyone, Not Everyone, gives you a unique solution to a big problem that digital agency owners face, serving too many types of clients. In my book, I guide you through my proven 5-step process, helping you to transform from a generalist to a vertical market specialist. The best part is the methods in this book are simple, authentic, and effective. It's been endorsed by well-known author Dr. Benjamin Hardy, legendary marketer Aaron Ross, positioning expert April Dunford, gifting expert John Rulin, as well as many leading agency owners and thought leaders. So whether you're a seasoned agency owner or just getting started out, my book, Anyone, Not Everyone, is your ultimate resource to unlock your agency's potential and scale revenue. The book launches in March, and the good news is that you can go to my website right now and sign up to be notified when it launches. You'll also get access to some early bonuses just by signing up to be notified today. Go to anyoneNotEveryone.com. That's anyoneNotEveryone.com. Now back to the show. Some agencies who've taken this approach and are sort of down the road have also leaned into this idea of building a community of the industry. So building an online place where people can go and trade best practices and network. Have you guys explored that idea?
Yeah, that's great. And we've actually really taken this approach over the last couple of years. And to my comments about trade shows being very successful, over the last couple of years, they've become saturated with marketing agencies and just in general. So we've also had to, be front to the market and really think about how to network appropriately and build these communities. And what we've done is two-prong approach. One, we're developing networking events during some of these trade shows. So inviting our partners, our clients, and prospects to interact with each other. It's been really successful for us instead of, passively waiting behind a booth and seeing if anyone wants a website audit. And it's fun to do too, and better for your feet and then standing behind a booth for 4 days in a row. And then the other thing that we've actually done is we've developed an event, and this will be the 4th year here. And this was, Seth Warby, the CEO's brainchild, and it's an amazing event. It's called the THC Open. So it's a golf and networking event, annual event, where we have industry executives, and it's not for consumers or people interested in the industry or researchers. It costs a decent amount to get in, and that's by design, because we have so many clients and so many partners and so many people that we talk to, where we want everyone in one place to be able to interact with each other. So if I can provide value to a dispensary to help them find a CRM partner or an online menu or a email marketing partner, we developed this event to do so. So it's a one-day networking event. We had about 500 people last year, and it's really our platform to build that community. And we don't even do it under the Cannabis Creative Group brand. It's a whole separate brand itself. So it's not about Cannabis Creative. It's about the industry getting to know each other. And obviously Cannabis Creative Group has a feature there, but it's a way to establish that community and bring people together.
Yeah. There's something to creating connections between potential partners and clients and service providers when you're the one connecting them as they move forward in that connection. You're always attached to that, right? Because you help to make that
exactly. And I'll tell you a quick story. In my interview and when I managed the health clubs, my goal was to be the mayor of the health club, to know everybody, to have a conversation with everyone, to help them however I could do it. And Seth will still tell you to this day, I said, my goal is to be the mayor of the cannabis industry. And whatever conversation I have and any value that I could provide to anyone, I was willing to do so. And that's really where I think has got me to where I am today, is because it's just, you want to know everyone, you want to talk to everyone, you want to provide value to everyone. And that's a big thing for our business, and just however we can help and to know everybody and talk to everybody and have a good relationship with everybody is really key in a vertical where it's not that big still. So the people know each other.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, even verticals that are relatively established, franchise comes to mind, it's still a small community. It's
Right.
a relatively small group of people. They've been hanging out with each other for 10, 20, 15 years, right? And so they could see an outsider coming from miles away type of thing, right? And so,
Big time. Absolutely.
You mentioned partnerships. I know it's a part of your focus. What role does partnerships play in your growth?
Yeah, it's a huge part of our growth. And so what our partnerships program does is we're really looking at companies that are adjacent to our services. So if a company is looking for a email marketing platform or a text messaging platform or a packaging company, we have a list of preferred vendors that we work with. So if someone says, hey, Dan, I need, packaging for my, edibles, I have probably 3 in mind. I help to, work with that lead or prospect to say, okay, how many bags do you need? What colors? All that stuff, where I can help build that relationship, know the vendor that's needed, and make those introductions. And that's been a key component of my role, is really finding and vetting those list of vendors for our clients, for our partners, for anyone in the industry. So it helps them with their business. And like I said, if I can provide value in any way, I'm willing to do so. So there's a lot of people out there and a lot of solutions out there that don't make sense for everyone. So if I can help that person really define what's best for them, that's going to be a key component of our business. And so, we probably don't make any commission on that. That's just, being a good person
Yeah.
and a good company to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is playing the long game, which is obviously working for you guys. Now, do you employ any salespeople on your team now?
Yeah. Currently, we have someone who's working with me in terms of marketing and sales. So we've talked about, and we've had some business development people in the agency. And, what I've found is that people really like talking to agency owners or people that have been with the agency for a long time, where I won't lie, I had a very, very hard time the first few years as, a business development rep or a sales executive, right? Once I was able to establish myself and get to know things more is when I really found success. So I think it's tough. I don't think it's not doable, but it has to be the right fit. And especially for our business, where you need to know digital marketing, you need to know branding, and you need to know the cannabis industry. There's not that many people that do that, and it takes a lot of time to be able to do that, which sometimes it doesn't work out, because at the end of the day, revenue is the important piece. So it's been an interesting part of our business in terms of how and who we hire.
Do you have a productized approach to the services you provide, or is it 100% custom every time, or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's somewhere in the middle right now. And for the last, let's say, 14 years of the agency, it has been completely custom. Over the last couple of years, we have really 2 different service offerings that are more productized. We focus one on it's called our dispensary launch package, where we know what we need to do for dispensaries to launch. They need a brand, they need a website, and they need an initial SEO presence, right? Google My Business setup, meta descriptions, title tags, all that stuff. The second product offering that we're rolling out shortly here, or have gone to market with, a handful, dozen clients, is our dispensary, we're going to call it growth package right now, or
Nice.
boost package. We're still working on the name here. So open to suggestions.
That's good.
But with that, once again, we've worked with dozens and dozens of clients when they are now past that launch phase. Second phase is we need money, right? We need to make money. So really we put into a holistic campaign, digital marketing campaign, looking specifically at customer acquisition and customer retention. And so we have defined a few different service offerings that are specifically for retention and acquisition. And that is very similar for each dispensary, right? We kind of have a model there that works, and we're seeing, I would say on the low end, 5x return on investment, on the high end, 30 or 40x ROAS. So it's been really interesting for a progression over the last year or so once we've developed this model and really replicated it. Every business is different, but when it comes down to it, the core services that they need are all the same.
Are the majority of these businesses that you guys work with, are they physical locations, or is there, are they online only, or do they provide both channels? Like, how does that work?
It's a great question. And I would say, probably it would be tough. So we work with all different types of businesses in the cannabis industry. So we work with both B2B, B2C, storefronts, extraction equipment, you name it. I would say probably about maybe 50 to 60% are more storefronts for us. So dispensaries themselves who sell cannabis products. Okay. And that's really why we developed those two packages, because it's a majority of our clients. And we know what they need, know how to get it, and know how to do it.
How big is let's say the dispensary market as far as in terms of businesses out there?
Yeah, it's massive. And I don't know the exact number, and it depends on states. But the interesting thing, and the reason why that I love cannabis so much and see a long-term path for success, is every year new states are coming online. So yeah, there might be just, Massachusetts and Maine and New York and New Jersey this year, but next year, Minnesota and Virginia and all these other states. So it's going to be exponentially growing as years go on, and we can really recycle the same model time over time again across, all 50 states, which, is, if it goes legal, which I, predict that it will eventually, it's a good model for us. And to that note, it selfishly, I would say it makes our business better if it doesn't go federally legal across the board and it goes state by state, because then we can do this instead of, everyone goes across the board. And that would, my prediction, I would say that would be a disaster. If just we opened up the floodgates and any state can open up a dispensary and there's just federal rules around it versus the existing state rules, it would just be a nightmare. So I don't really see that happening from just the federal standpoint. I think it would be continued state by state.
Interesting. Let's talk about just this overall approach to verticalization. Have there been any negatives in your experience to having this tight focus on the cannabis industry?
Yeah, definitely. One of the negative experiences is the risk factor of cannabis as a whole. That could get shut down by the federal government at any point, right? Where if that happens, now I don't think that's going to happen, but we need to prepare for that, right? And so we've actually, over the last couple of years, really focused some time on developing some other verticals in Champ to make sure that we're set up for success and we're scaling same playbook for cannabis, but other verticals. So we've been really looking into that because of two reasons. One is, what if federally shuts down? And then two, transparently in cannabis, it was not a great year last year and the year before. The industry really took a fall. So with that being said, the first things to cut is marketing. And for listeners out there that aren't familiar with the cannabis industry, is marketing is not an expense that a business owner can write off because of 280E, which means that really the only business expense you can write off is your product, your cost of goods. So marketing is a very expensive piece of cannabis companies' businesses that they're paying full price for. So if their business is not doing well and the industry is not doing well, marketing is going to be the first thing that gets cut.
And so the way to offset that, as you mentioned, you're developing some new verticals that should, the climate change at the federal level, that would be a place where you guys can go and redeploy focus and resources and whatnot.
Exactly. So one of my main tasks over the last year and a half here is to look at all of our past clients and look at the clients that we've been successful with in terms of e-commerce and travel and tourism and restaurants and food and beverage, and really see one, who is the best retention, who sticks around the longest, right? Who has budgets to work with us, and who have we had most success with? So in terms of defining verticals, the passion I would say that our company has for cannabis is not necessarily a huge factor in terms of this side of the business, but as we need to adjust, it's the business needs to make money, and transparently, some of our verticals are pretty fun. So we work with a lot of boating and marina clients, food and beverage. We do a lot in the restaurant space, travel and tourism. So although those aren't cannabis, there's still a lot of fun to work on.
That's great. Curious about your growth as a contributor to the company. I know you started off in, I guess, business development. You're VP, now you're partner in this agency, which is wonderful. What have been some major milestones in your progression, whether at this company or previous?
Yeah, definitely. I think, being and joining the leadership team at this agency has been the biggest thing for me in terms of a milestone that I've hit, where we're still a small business. I think our leadership team is 5 or 6 of us now, where there isn't a lot of red tape, right? So before, when I was a business development rep and a sales executive, it was a lot of, hey, can I do this? Hey, I have this idea. Hey, what do you think about this? Where now, I can run with these ideas and see if they're successful, like our, 2 service offering packages that we've launched, and really be able to, check and balance with the operations team and the CEO is, hey, I'm coming at this from a sales front because I think this is going to work. Does it line up operationally? If so, that's great. If it doesn't, let's adjust. And really, that was the biggest milestone for me, was to be able to work with the amazing minds of our leadership team to be able to tailor these service offerings accordingly, and making sure that not only do they make sense from a sales perspective, but we're making money doing what we're doing, and it operationally makes sense.
What do you feel were the things that helped you to get to the point where you could join the leadership table?
Yeah, I think, in a unique scenario that I really dove right in and learned the cannabis industry more than anybody else that I knew. I really owned it. So when anyone had questions, if it wasn't about sales, it was just cannabis in general, or, hey, my mom is looking for CBD for her bad knee, I was the guy to talk to. So I think that was key in terms of my growth, is really knowing every single thing about that vertical that I could possibly learn. I mean, I'm still, reading books here. This is a book about the fundamentals of legal cannabis industry, and just owning that vertical, I think, is really important for anybody in this role. Is if you have an opportunity to work in a vertical, learn every single thing about it. It's going to make such a difference. Learn about the industry more than your products, because you're going to learn your products over time. You're not going to learn your industry over time unless you put that extra effort in.
Could you speak to why that's important?
Yeah. From my standpoint, if I get on a call with a product manufacturer for cannabis, which means that they take flower or, dried cannabis products, manufacture that into gummies, and then sell it to a dispensary, it's the supply chain is very unique. And if I don't know for that product manufacturer what marketing services work for them, then I'm dead in the water. The person's going to read right through that. So, and same thing goes for a dispensary. If I'm saying, oh, well, do you grow your own flower? That's not how it works. So in order for me to be successful, I need to know how that business operates to be able to provide the best service to them that makes sense. And we see that a lot now, where there's a lot of companies who are Google advertising. I'll take for an example. It's very hard to do in the cannabis industry, and I wouldn't recommend it for all cannabis businesses. It works driving local search traffic to dispensaries. Yeah. But if you're a cannabis brand, even a major national cannabis brand, it doesn't make sense to run Google ads because you can't buy online, right? So you won't see any of those conversions because the conversion point happens at the dispensary, that brands don't have access to that data. Yeah. And if I don't know that by learning the industry, I look like an idiot on a sales call.
Yep, you lose credibility.
Yep.
Beautiful. I have two last questions for you as we wrap up here. And number one is, what would be your parting advice, particularly for those agency owners who maybe have taken a generalist approach and are maybe considering maybe one of these high risk verticals, such as cannabis, or maybe others that are just, fast, emerging quickly? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, my best advice is to learn what you can and can't do, because and base that on your services. Because if your service offerings don't match with what you can and can't do, then you need to think about your business strategy. So in high risk industries, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, there's others, there's a lot of limitations. And if you're an advertising specific agency, you're going to have a very, very hard time. So look at your core service offerings, see if it's even doable. Run some test campaigns, right? Spin up a brand on Fiverr for $500 and see if you can do some stuff. It takes major investment, and that's one thing that I'll say to Seth is, and something that I'm very happy that he's been able to do is take risks, right? And calculate that risk and reward. And Seth is a very numbers guy, and be able to calculate that risk and say, look, let's try something, see if it works. And here's your budget, stick to this budget, but this is what I have allocated. Show me the ROI. And if it works, that's great. If not, move on.
Yeah, right. Beautiful. All right. Last question. What's your motivation?
Yeah, my motivation, I will tell you, as a sales professional, I am money motivated. That's one of the big things. And I really believe that if you're in sales and you're not money motivated, you should probably be looking for something else.
Yep,
but
I agree with that.
something else is really, motivation for me is when I hear someone referred to us or had a conversation because, oh, I talked to the team at Cannabis Creative Group. They're great. They're amazing. Or, Dan helped me out with X, Y, and Z. And seeing that I've been able to help people across the board, not necessarily in their marketing, but either in life, either with their business, or provided an idea to them that they didn't think of, and it comes back to me and I hear that, it's really rewarding to me. So hearing that I've been able to help somebody with their business, and look, I'm not an entrepreneur. I one day would love to be, but if I can help an entrepreneur with some ideas that I have based on the research and knowledge that I have, it's rewarding to me. So seeing that, and obviously, seeing the success in the business, knowing that, sure. What's really rewarding is when I look at, we've serviced over 400 cannabis clients, and I started 6 years ago and we had 2. That those numbers speak for themselves. So seeing that, progression is really, really interesting for me.
So success overall, monetarily, building great relationships, building a great brand, all those things. That's awesome, man. Where can people reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation with you?
Yeah, definitely. So feel free to, shoot me an email. It's dan@cannabiscreative.com or dan@champinternet.com, depending on, cannabis or non-cannabis. Both go to me. And our websites are cannabiscreativegroup.com and champinternet.com. So happy to connect there or on LinkedIn. Very active on LinkedIn, and always open to a conversation.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your experience and wisdom with us, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Corey. I really appreciate it. It was great talking with you.
Likewise. That's it for today. I'm Corey Quinn, and I hope you join me again next time on the Deep Specialization Podcast. If you received value from this show, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.